Hey everybody. Everybody, welcome to Wednesday. It's Ron Williams, and as I am prone to do every once in a while, I'm trying to do it every week. I'm hopping back in both of our Facebook groups today to share with you guys, give you guys a couple of ideas on how to grow your new construction niche business. So this particular broadcast, or this particular session is part of a series that I'm doing on solving problems for new construction buyers. And if you get the chance, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? If you're there, let me know. Would love for you to tell me that you can hear me, and make sure that my mic and everything is working okay. I think it is. But hey, if you're here today, and I hope you are, I've got some really good information to share with you on how to connect with home builders in your local market. And one of the big pieces of this whole equation is figuring out how to get a hold of the builders, how to find the builders and which builders to work with. And that's not only a problem for you, but it's a problem for the buyers. And so in order to really grow a successful niche and do all the business that you want to do in new construction, and it's wide open, you got to learn how to find the builders and which builders that you're going to pursue a relationship with. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'll move kind of fast on it. I've got a lot of stuff to cover with you guys. So welcome, Facebook user. By the way, if you're here today, and I hope you are, you can go to, if you haven't already, go to this URL at the bottom of the screen here, which is StreamYard.com/Facebook. And you go into StreamYard.com/Facebook, and then you can comment on the page, and I'll see who you are, and I'll be able to comment back, and I won't have to call you Facebook user. But I'm glad you're here today, and hope you're having an amazing week. So today I want to talk to you specifically about new construction buyers, and I'm sorry, home builders. On behalf of the new construction buyers, how do we find the builders that we're going to work with? And to kind of frame this correctly, let me start off by saying, when I talk about working with builders, and there's a couple things that we need to kind of define here before I get into the content. One is that you can probably work with just about any builder. Okay, in other words, you're going to be able to, as long as they're working with a realtor and they're willing to have broker participation, and most of them are. And probably these days, right now, where the economy is today, probably 100% of them are, and we're seeing it all over the United States, that builders are not only willing to work with a realtor, but they want to work with a realtor. They want to find the realtors who are serious about new construction, and they're doing more and more to go, how do we connect with the realtors? And so it's something a lot of realtors aren't aware of. A lot of times realtors tell me, well, Ron, builders don't really like realtors. Not true. It's just not. It's a myth. If you think the builders do not want to work with realtors, we need to reset, because they do. They want us to be a different kind of realtor, though. They want us to step up our game. And this is not about working harder. It's not about selling your soul or giving your commissions away. It is not. In fact, when you learn how to do it, you'll be doing just the opposite. You'll be talking about raising your prices, and because you're providing a different level of quality than any of the other realtors in your market. But when I talk about builders to work with, first of all, as long as there's a realtor participation, they're willing to pay commission if you bring a buyer, then you can work with just about any of them, from the largest to the smallest. And like I said a minute ago, probably close to 100% of them are going to be willing to pay a commission these days and have you participate in bringing a buyer to them. One of the things we've read in the last 7 months, I think it's the last 7 months, maybe 8 months, every month, they do a builder confidence survey, and every month builder confidence is going down. And so, they're concerned that there's not going to be enough buyers. And, they've been on riding the top of the wave for the last 18 months with COVID, lots and lots of buyers, and now not as many buyers, and builders have got a lot of property. They have to pay mortgages on these houses they built. And that's got to make them feel pretty at risk right now. They've got a lot of burn rate, as we call it in the business world. They've got a high burn rate, and they've got a lot of monies that are going out every month. Maybe they've got teams. They need to keep those teams fed, so they are concerned. So point being, right now is the time. If you're a realtor and you want to step into new construction, it is the absolute, probably the best time ever for a realtor to step into new construction and say, you know what, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to provide massive value in the new construction space, and I'm going to dominate my market. And guys, that is what I am all about. That is what I am all about, is showing you not just how to go do a transaction. I mean, I suppose anybody can do that. I've got a buyer. The buyer wants a new home. Go drop them off to the builder, sign them up, and come back to closing. That is not what we're about. What we're about is teaching realtors and enabling you and empowering you and giving you the toolbox, the complete tool set on how to go out and dominate your market, because you can. If you want to, you can. It's wide open in every market. I have yet to see a market where you can't do it. And then realtors all the time tell, well, but my market's different. My market's got this or that or the other thing. If there's building going on, there's an opportunity for you to step into that space and move way, way past all the other realtors in your market. I don't care if it's a big market or it's a secondary or tertiary market. The opportunity is there for you, and but you have to get focused on it. So builders are ready to work with realtors and their buyers. Thank you, Facebook user. And Facebook user, tell me who you are, so that I can thank you properly and not call you Facebook user, because it's kind of rude, and would rather call you by your name. But and if you're able, in another tab, there she is. There she is, Tamara Simmons. Okay, we can get started now. Tamara's in the house. So what I was saying is, number one, great to see you, Tamara, even though I can't see you, but good to see you here. So what I was saying is that, when I talk about working with builders and finding the right builders to work with, okay, you can bring a buyer to virtually any builder. You need to clear your commission first and make sure that you're good on that. But any builder, almost any builder, probably 100% of them are very close, are these days going, yeah, I want to pay a commission. I'm willing to have a realtor participate. And so that's not really what. So you can do that with any builder. You can bring a buyer to a builder and receive compensation, receive a commission for bringing that buyer to the builder. Okay. But what I'm talking about today, and what I want to get into today, is for the next few minutes, is talking about a different kind of relationship. And one of the things that realtors don't realize, most of the time, vast majority of the time, is that there's a whole other dimension of this that most realtors are not aware of. Most realtors, when they think about working on a new construction transaction, they're still thinking about, I bring the buyer, I drop off the buyer, I work with that buyer through the process, and that's all that I really do in new construction. It's not. It can be, and it's what a majority of realtors have, relinquished to themselves to. Well, I just bring a buyer and then I get out of the way and show up at the closing table. And by the way, I think we talked about this last week. if you weren't here last week, I really, we're going through the next 8 weeks, 7 weeks, looking at buyer problems when it comes to new construction. And so there was a pretty good talk last week, and the one week before. I would grab those out of the room here. They should be uploaded to either room that you're in if you're in the affiliate realtor group. But some things to think about. So when I'm talking about working with builders, though, and finding the right builders, where are the builders that I should be going after? What I'm talking about is building more of a client relationship on the builder side. I'm not just talking about where you're representing the buyer, bringing the buyer to the transaction, bringing to the neighborhood, the model home, and collecting your commission at the end. Okay, you can do that, and that's what a vast majority of realtors are doing. Probably 99.9% of them, that's all they do. But what I'm talking about is learning to develop a relationship with a particular set of builders where you're not just working on the buyer side, but where you're working on the builder side. And so that's what I want to talk about for the next few minutes, is how to do that, how to find those builders and the right ones that you want to work with. And there's a big difference between one and the next and the next. There's a huge difference. Most realtors do this the wrong way. They're going after the wrong builders as a client, and they're going after them in the wrong way. So one other thing that I want to clarify is that when we talk about builders, and when you're thinking about new construction, it's the buyer journey is so much different when it comes to new construction. The opportunity as a realtor is so much different. It's so much bigger when it comes to new construction than anything that you've experienced when it's selling used homes. It's a magnitude, 10x or 20x or something bigger, the opportunity that you have around new construction. I'm going to show you why here in just a second. But one of the things that we need to define is when we talk about builders, we are not just talking about builders, okay? Because in the new construction space, you actually have two different types of prospects, or three different types of prospects. But on the seller side, you have builders and you have developers. And you might be listening to this going, I know it, Ron. Yeah, I get that. Not everybody does. I just did a podcast yesterday. I was invited on a podcast, and we got done with podcast, and great guy, great host, and he said, I didn't know that. I never really thought about it that way. Well, a lot of realtors don't. Okay, there's a whole other scope of things when it comes to new construction where you have sales opportunity, you have commission opportunity, you have transaction opportunity. It is much, much bigger. Here's kind of what it looks like. Okay, I'm gonna show you this real quick. So this is my very high-tech slide program here. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. And so getting real techie here today with my slides. But traditionally, if you're selling a used home, you're selling pre-owned homes, and that's all I do, you are always operating out of one of two databases. And I think this is a good way to think about it, okay? You're always growing and you're working with one of two databases. If you know what they are, spit them out, tell me what they are. But there's always two databases. And as a broker, which you are, you're brokering a transaction. The key thing that you're doing is you're an intermediary between two different databases and two different parties, right? A buyer and a seller. Simple enough. And you might say, well, that's kind of goofy, Ron, but I think it's really important to understand this, that when you're selling used homes, you're selling pre-owned homes, there are two databases. And so kind of hiding myself here, but these two databases are, and I don't know if this is going to be backwards. It may be backwards on your screen. And, but let me write it out here. There's two databases you're always feeding these databases, you're working these databases, and you're making a match between the two different databases. And your job and what you get paid the big bucks for, and if you want bigger bucks, you just do more transactions. You broker more deals, okay? I know this sounds really pretty fundamental, but when you get it, it will change the way your business operates. It will change because it will speed up the number of transactions that you're doing when you start to grab a hold of this, okay? So here are the two databases. If you're selling pre-owned homes, you're selling used homes, that's all I do. I'm not doing new construction. There's two databases you're operating with, you're working with. And here they are, right there. Is that backwards? Can you see it? I don't know if it's backwards on your screen, but the two databases are one, over here, buyers, over here, the sellers, or what we call the multiple listing service, right? And on the multiple listing service, you don't really even feed that database unless you only add something to that database of sales opportunities whenever you get a listing. If you didn't get a listing this week, you're just borrowing from the database that everybody else has access to, that the buyers have access to. In fact, they don't even have just access with, they've got access to it everywhere. We're on Zillow, on Realtor, on, all different. So there's two databases that you're working with. And you're, every week you're trying to add more people into your buyer portfolio, your stable of buyers, your database of buyers, if you will, and you're searching this public database of what's on the MLS this week or today to go show my buyers. And there's nothing particularly special or unique about that. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't mean it in a critical way. It's just, every realtor, all 19,000 realtors in your market have access to that same thing, and so do the buyers. So it's very common, right? Where you want to be as a realtor is you want to get to a place where you have unique value that you're providing to a special set of buyers and sellers. This is why I tell realtors all the time, if you want to grow fast as a realtor and you don't want to spend the next 20 years just trying to, level up and get to where I'm making the kind of money that I want to make. If you want to grow fast, you niche down. You provide more value and unique value to a smaller set of buyers and sellers. And if I were a note taker, and I am, and I hope you are too, I'd be writing this stuff down, because you might hear it now, but it's going to hit you about midnight or 1 in the morning. You go, oh crap, I get it. Okay, maybe you get it already, probably do. But if you want to grow fast as a realtor, it's about focusing your value that you're providing. You want to provide unique value that none of the other realtors are providing to a smaller set of buyers and sellers, right? And this is what makes new construction such an amazing, incredible opportunity. There's a lot of things that make new construction an amazing opportunity. I'm going to show you what they are. But one of them is that most realtors have not done this. Most realtors do not niche. They don't specialize. They just take anything. Oh, this week I'm working with a investment buyer, who wants to buy flip properties. And then next week I'm working with a first-time buyer who wants to buy a entry-level home. And then the week after that I'm working with something else and something else and something else. And so we're generalists. And when we're generalists, we're trying to provide everything for everybody. We end up providing very little for anybody. I mean, we're just like everybody else. I want you to be unique. I want you to be to where people are going, you know what? If you want to do this one thing, you want to do new construction, this is the realtor you need to work with, because they have a whole different game plan than everybody else. And I'm telling you what, it is not that hard. It is the fastest way. If you want to lead your market in something, pick that something. And in fact, if you want to do multiple somethings, you could do that too. If you're in a really, really small market, which most of you aren't, there are places in new construction, and we won't talk about this today, but you can actually sub niche within new construction. You can not only specialize in new construction, you can specialize in just 2 or 3 little elements within new construction and make a great living and do a lot of transactions, because you're matching your database. Okay, you're focused. And the more you focus on a niche market, the faster you're going to be doing deals. You're adding more value, unique value to a smaller set of buyers and sellers. Okay, so I think I've kind of beat that to death, and I hope you wrote it down. Now, when it comes to new construction, though, it's a little bit different. So here's my next fancy slide here. Hang on a second. Let me write these out. And that one. And all right. So here's my next fancy slide. Are you ready? Tamara, you ready? By the way, if you're here today, I would love for you to say hello. Just, type in your little comment box, hey, I'm here, okay? And just so I'm not talking to myself the whole time. So here's the big difference, or one of the fundamental differences with new construction is that, all right, with selling used homes, you got two databases you're dealing in. You're constantly adding to your buyer database. You want to find the next buyer and the next buyer and the next buyer. And then you're using this public database called the multiple listing service. But you only add something to that database when you have a listing. Hey, Facebook user, I don't know who you are. Tell me who you are, so I can recognize you, because I don't recognize you by Facebook user. But in the more times you match a buyer to a seller, you get paid. Hey, Maria, good to see you, Maria. And so ultimately our goal is we live right here in between this buyer database and the seller database. It might be kind of an odd way for you to think about it. But when you start to think about it this way, you're like, okay, all I got to do, get another buyer, match them to another seller. And the more times I match a buyer to a seller, every time I do that, every time I make a match from, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, every time I match a buyer to a seller, cha-ching, I get paid, right? So I match a buyer to a seller. Here's the problem with it, okay? Here's the problem with, I probably should have just done this whole class just on this right here, okay? Because we're probably not going to have time to cover it all. But the problem is, one day you're dealing with a, USDA buyer. Next day you're dealing with a, rural seller. Next thing, and so every time you gain expertise in one thing, and the next week you have a different kind of buyer or seller, now you have to go gain expertise in that other thing as well. And so we're kind of all over the map, and it makes it harder and harder to do matches. Now, the thing that you want to do, now, if you had all of your buyers that were very similar, all my buyers are, let's just call them, all my buyers are very similar. They all want kind of the same thing. And all my sellers that I'm working with are very similar. They're looking for the same kind of buyer. Then all of a sudden, when that happens, then every time you have a buyer, every time you've got a seller, you've got a lot of things that you can do. You've got a lot of matching that you can do. Is this making sense, Maria? Tamara, is this making sense? And if you're here today, we'd love for you to say hi. So put it in the comment box, say hello. But the closer aligned all your sellers are and your buyers, the faster you can do matches, and you're matching buyer to seller, buyer to seller, buyer to seller, and you're getting more money. Okay, you're making more transactions. That is really at the core what's happening when you niche down. The more you niche, the more you're providing. Hey, Elka, good to see you. Look at this, guys. Elka actually has figured out this StreamYard.com/Facebook, and so I get to see her beautiful smiling face here and say hi to Elka. Everybody be like Elka. So the more that you focus in on a smaller group of buyers and sellers, the more unique value you're providing, the more that the buying and selling public begins to define you as the specialist, as the go-to person. And I'm telling you what, when it comes to new construction, they want a go-to realtor. They want a go-to realtor. They don't want just any realtor. Unfortunately, that's usually what they get because most realtors do not specialize in new construction. But if it's a builder or if it's a buyer, the buyer wants a guide who knows their way through new construction. They do. They want a fiduciary. They want somebody, and why? Because this is the largest, most complex purchase that most people will ever make in their life, building my dream home, where I've got to decide on the neighborhood. I've got to decide on the lots within the neighborhood. I've got to decide on, the builder that I go with and the floor plan and everything, sometimes right down to the, what kind of faucets and cabinets and countertops I'm going to have. It's scary. It's scary. It feels like risk. It feels heavy for them. When we interview buyers about this process, people that built a house before or are in the process right now or wanting to, they talk about it like having a child, like having their first baby or getting married. It's a life event building a house. Consequently, they want somebody who's going to be able to guide them through that process, right? And you have the opportunity to do that and to be that special somebody for these special buyers and sellers. Builders are the same. Now, they'll sell a house through any realtor. You got a buyer and they're willing to pay a commission. Good, let's do it. Let's get this house sold. But that is not generally, it's not truly who builders want to work with. They will, because they need to sell it. They need to, they got more houses coming on. They need to sell this one and the next one, let's get moving, But ultimately what they really want is they want a realtor who specializes in their thing in new construction. Now here's where it gets a little bit interesting and different. And Elka, maybe you've seen this before because you've been in some of the other classes, but when it comes to new construction, there's no longer two databases that you're dealing with. There's three databases. And what this does is it explodes your opportunities. There's more and more opportunities. Most people completely miss it. They don't realize, wow, there's other things that I can sell here. I can do more transactions for more people, but be more specialized and focused. Here's kind of what it looks like. When it comes to new construction, there are now three databases that you're operating in. Okay, and these databases are going to be far more unique. And then we're going to talk about how to find the builders and which builders we want to go after, because you don't want to try to work with all of them. So when it comes to new construction, three databases. You have your buyers, which we've already said. So you're going to have buyers of new construction too. But now on the seller side, you no longer really have the MLS. I mean, there's some stuff on the MLS, but a vast majority of it is not. And is that backwards, by the way, Elka? Is that mirrored, or is it backwards on your computer? Or is it looks backwards on mine? So I don't know if it is on yours. But you have buyers, then you're going to be developing a database of who the builders are, and it's backwards. Sorry about that. Well, hopefully you can read backwards. We have another class on that, on how to read backwards, but we're not doing that today. So you have a database of buyers. You're going to develop a database of relationships with builders. And the other one is the developers and the neighborhoods. That's my little abbreviation. That probably really is hard to read. But, the developers the developers and the neighborhoods that the developers are creating. And when we talk about builders, a lot of times we're only thinking of this one right here, or we assume that these are the same, and they're not. They really are not. Most builders will build a house. They don't build the neighborhood. And you got a handful of them that are building the neighborhoods, and that's all they do. And then another handful that are building the neighborhoods, and they build the homes within the neighborhoods. Does this make sense? Pretty basic. Let me see if I can fix this. Doggone it. How do I do that? Cool. All right. Is that better? Awesome. Okay. Now it's right. So you've got three databases. You got buyers, you got builders, and you got developers and neighborhoods that they develop. And it's important for you to understand as you're going into new construction, that you're differentiating between the builders and the developers, because it's two different businesses. Now, the bigger they get, So a lot of small builders, when they start off, they're just a builder. I just build houses. Maybe they learned it, after they got out of high school, or they got out of college, or their dad did it, or their grandparents did it. And a lot of times builders are generational businesses, and they learn to build. And so they build houses. Now, as they get a little bit bigger and they start to have a little bit more, command more capital, and so the builder is out buying lots from this person, from this guy or gal, from this company. They're finding the developers who are developing the land, and they're buying lots. Did you hear that? They're buying lots. Guess what? You can get commission on lots as well as the house itself. And there's a ton of reasons to do it. One of them is to make money, okay? But there are other reasons that when you start to understand that, hey, I can make money not just selling a new construction home to a buyer, but helping a builder connect with a developer, and that builder buys 10 lots from the developer. Guess what? That is a huge opportunity that most realtors miss. Because a lot of times, if you go help the builder identify a neighborhood that maybe they didn't know about, and they buy 5 or 10 lots, now you have a relationship with the builder. You've added value to the builder. Who are they going to list their houses with once they build these houses? Are you getting that? And I know this sounds pretty basic, but it is so missed by most realtors. So when you're thinking new construction, there's really there's much more opportunity. There's actually a fourth database too that we're not going to get into today, because we'll be doing another training on that in the next few weeks in the affiliate realtor group. And it's a big opportunity, and it's a long-term play. But there's actually a fourth database. But these are the three main ones that a realtor should think about. I want to be developing a database of who are new construction buyers, who are the builders, and who are the developers, and more specifically, what are the neighborhoods that those developers are developing, right? And so when you start to do this, you start to see that there's a lot more matchy back and forth. There's a lot more opportunities to connect a buyer with a builder, connect a buyer with a piece of land, with a lot, or connect a builder with a developer. So there's just a lot more transactions that you can do with the same level of effort, or even less. And, realtors, a lot of times, I think they think that new construction is harder. It's not. It's just different. It's very focused. And when you start doing it this way, and you start to recognize, wow, okay, I need to understand the inventory of the neighborhoods. We talked about that last week. If you didn't hear that, go back and grab that video. It's in both of the groups. I need to get to know the neighborhoods and the developers who develop those neighborhoods. I need to develop understanding of the inventory of the builders and what those builders build. And then I've got buyers. And when we start to get a hold of this, and by the way, I do mean database. I'm not talking about putting it on a notepad. I'm talking about putting them in a database. And if that's something you need help with, we now have developed a full-blown database. I wouldn't call it a CRM. It's getting close to a CRM, but and very soon it will be a full-blown CRM. But we have developed a database that you can put all your builders, all your neighborhoods, all your buyers in, and begin to track your relationship with them and track everything about them. This is a big builder. This is a small builder. This one builds, in this county, and this one builds in that county. This one's a custom builder. This one's a semi-custom. This is a production builder. There are pieces of information that you need to track. And you cannot just commit this to memory. Okay, when you start to specialize, and you can specialize very quick, you're going to start getting wins, and you're going to start being recognized as being a unique, valuable resource that everybody wants to work with. But you're not going to be able to remember it all, because there's too many builders, and there's too many neighborhoods, and there's too many new construction buyers. So if you're not using a database, reach out to me. We can talk about it and see if we can help you get into that. And very soon with the Affiliate Realtor program, We're going to be offering that as part of the Affiliate Realtor program for anybody that joins up with Hoodle. Not only will you have a database tool. Now, if you got one then that you're in love with and you're using it, and that's really important. And by the way, I use a database every single day. I've got so much stuff going in and coming out of my database, and the more you feed that, the more it feeds you. Okay, the more you put in your tracking information. In our case, here's all the builders in my market, here's the developers, here's the neighborhoods that they're developing, the price points of those neighborhoods, and here's the buyers. The more you feed that database, it starts over a period of time, you start going, oh, I never recognized that. I just met Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and I've got 4 different neighborhoods that they would be a good fit for, and 2 builders that may have a house right now. You cannot remember this stuff. You cannot commit it to a notepad and say that's good enough, okay? Because the goal in being a broker is being the first one to make that matchy-matchy happen, right? That's a technical term, by the way, Elka, matchy-matchy. You know, but being the first one that you found this buyer, and this buyer's like, oh, yeah, Tamara, yeah, Elka, you know, help me get into that new construction house. You want to be the first one to get them over to that builder, right? Or to get them over to that neighborhood and help them find that lot, to get it under contract. Now, I'm not talking about shortcutting the process. I'm talking about doing good quality work. But you want to be the one who makes the match, not somebody else that's sitting at the next desk over or is at your competitor brokerage, right? And so it's about the speed of doing matches. And I know maybe it sounds kind of weird, doesn't it, to talk about, you know, our role as a realtor, but that really is what it is. It's about making matches. The cool thing about it is when you start to specialize in new construction, you're no longer using the public database called the MLS. Now, you have access to some of that data because some of it's on the MLS. You know, you can go look at your MLS and you're going to see that about 30% of the neighborhoods are present somewhere on your MLS, the new home neighborhoods, but 70% of them are not. So there's this whole big missing piece of information that the MLS doesn't provide to everybody, including all the buyers, okay? You start to develop specialized knowledge about here's the other neighborhoods that maybe the other realtors don't know about, nobody's really telling you about, okay? And you're providing more value, and very quickly, your name starts to get out. You want to build a new construction home? Go talk to Elka. You want to build this type of a home? Go talk to Tamara, okay? Go talk to Maria, because Maria specializes in that and she knows it more than anybody else. And I'm telling you what, they will love you for it. They will not only love you for it and recognize you as the expert, they will refer you out. They will refer you out. New construction buyers find their realtor from other new construction buyers. They choose their builder, they choose their realtor, they choose their neighborhood. They're out talking to, because it's not on any of the major websites except for what we're doing at Hoodle, which is a whole other story. But so I want to get that clear. You know, I just kind of want to frame that up real quick, and then let's move on to a couple of other things. And we really want to talk about, well, which builders do I work with, and how do I get to them? And we're already running out of time, guys. But I'm going to give you a little bit more here, and I want you to apply this. So one of the things that you need to know about all these builders and developers, okay, when you're getting into new construction, one of the things you need to be aware of is about 80% of them are what they call SMBs. Anybody know that term, SMB? Small or medium-sized business. Small or medium-sized businesses. What we used to call a mom and pop, which is not a derogatory term at all. It's just they're a small business. 80% of builders are small business people. They in a lot of cases, they don't have big websites. They don't have big marketing budgets. Sometimes they don't have a big team. They may not have a marketing person at all. They're a small or medium-sized business. And here's the interesting thing about it. Most realtors, and I've done this with probably thousands of realtors at this point, I'll ask realtors things like, in big cities, I'll be talking to a realtor or a group of realtors, say, how many builders are in your market? And the realtors will say, and I talked to a guy not too long ago down in Houston, and I said, how many builders? I could tell by the way they were talking about it, they thought, all the builders are taken up. There's no opportunity for me with builders. I said, well, how many builders do you suppose there are in the Houston market? And this gentleman said to me, I think he said 22. It's like 20 or 22. There are 22 builders. It's like, no, dude, there are probably close to 5,000 builders in your market. Here's the problem, that realtors are going by top of mind awareness. Well, what do we remember? Well, I remember Toll Brothers. I remember DR. They're a great company. I remember Pulte. I remember, this one, that one, and the other one. We remembered all the big ones, that are on Google, that, by the way, the buyers can find on their own too. I'm not saying don't represent a buyer to them. Buyer still needs representation. But the problem is all the realtors are chasing after the same big builders that have top of mind awareness with. They can remember those because, this one, that one, or the other one, they've got 15 neighborhoods. They've got big flags. But 80% of builders and developers, right, because they're two different kinds of business, 80% of builders and developers are not Pulte, are not DR, are not, KB or KHOV or any of the others. They're small business people. They don't have big marketing budgets. They may not have a marketing presence on the web. Is this ringing any bells? Are you getting any ahas from this? It's like, okay, well, as a real estate marketing professional, who should you be working with? Okay, if you're, which we are, supposedly that's what we are. When we get that pre-license done, and we refer to ourselves and think, I'm a real estate marketing professional. Okay, who do I want to market the most then? I want to market the ones, I want to sell the ones that need my service the most. All right. And if this is not, ringing any bells or putting any lights off for you, it absolutely should be, because there's an enormous missed opportunity, because most realtors are chasing after the very biggest builders, and those very biggest builders, they've got all the realtors that are lined up outside the door. Yeah, come on in. You're the 150th one, this week that stopped in, and 80% of the builders are being overlooked. And just because they're small, just because they don't have a marketing budget, or they don't have a big marketing budget, or they don't have a website, or maybe they've got a website but they didn't get any traffic, that doesn't mean they're a bad builder. It just means they're a small business. In fact, a lot of times those builders may be a better builder than the big builders. They are craftsmen. They are very into their workmanship. And just because it's big or small doesn't dictate the quality, obviously, but it's a different type of experience for the buyer. And by the way, a majority of buyers would prefer working with a small or medium-sized builder. A majority, over 50% of new construction buyers would rather be working with a semi-custom or custom builder, but a smaller builder, a smaller neighborhood, right? And here's the thing, those builders are being overlooked by a vast majority of the realtors, and they want to connect with you. They want to connect with you. If you're going to specialize in new homes, they want to know you, and they're much, much far and away easier for you to work with and develop a business relationship with than what's going to require you. Now you can list with any of them. I mean, if they're listing, but it's harder to get your foot in the door with a Lennar. It is harder. It's, you got to jump through a lot of hoops, a lot of red tape. A lot of people got to sign off on it, and you got to have a bigger marketing presence and stuff. Where many of the small and mid-sized builders are like, You come and present the right message to them and approach it in the right way, and you'll walk out with a listing. I hope you're getting something out of this. I hope you go and take something and do something with this. So 80% of them are small and mid-sized, and they're being overlooked by majority of the realtors. That is where you want to focus. Now, that's not the whole story, but that's the start of it. And let me give you a couple more things, then we'll wrap up because we're already way over time today. I'm trying to do these in about a half hour or less. And I don't know if I know too much or I just talk too much, Elka. Probably both. Maybe I just talk too much. But so there's a lot more ways to make money. You have to recognize that there's a big difference between small and medium and large builders. In fact, in your database that you're going to set up, I hope you do. And if you don't, reach out to me. We'll see if we can help you get into a database. But in your database, you need to have a field for small, medium, and large. And you need to be tagging all these companies. Is this a small, medium, or large? Why? Because a small builder and a medium-sized builder or medium-sized builder developer, because as they get bigger, like we said, a lot of times they move from being just a builder to now I'm a builder developer. I not only build houses, but I have a second revenue stream. I'm starting the neighborhood and I'm creating and selling the lots and I'm making a profit on the home side of the lot, right? So the small and the medium size and the large, they have a completely different view of the world. They have a different set of problems. They have a different set of things that keep them up and make them nervous at night. They have a different need for the way that they want to operate with a realtor. They have a different perception of the realtors, and they have there's a different way that you're going to approach each of those small, medium, or large. And there is a sweet spot. We don't have time to get into it today, but if we're working together, I will show you the exact sweet spot. Here are the builders and the developers that you need to be developing a relationship with. And it's not what you think. A lot of times, and I did too. I thought, well, I'd say the sweet spot is find the smallest ones, and it's not. It's really not. But there is a way to find the kind of the sweet spot of here are the ones that most likely, if I come in and I bring real value, and if I get really focused, I'm going to be developing a business relationship with them much, much faster. We're talking about years faster. And the importance of this business relationship, by the way, is not I got a listing. I mean that's a big step of it. But the business relationship that I want you to develop is one where you got all the listings. You're not just doing a transaction, you're partnering with the builder. You're partnering with the developer. There's a very clear path to doing that. And we are now seeing it happen over and over and over again. It's something I learned of a dozen or more years specialized in new construction. And we started to figure it out. And now we're seeing other realtors doing it and helping other realtors to do that. So, all right. So which builders do you want to go after? Well, first of all, you want to find the ones that are not just the big, I'm not saying don't present the production builders. Absolutely you should. They build beautiful neighborhoods, and if that works for one of your buyers, no reason to go any further, right? If that buyer's going, I got it, I love this, let's go with D.R. Horton, I love it, then perfect, then do that transaction. But when it comes to partnering with them, there's a whole different world that you may not be thinking of and you may be missing, and most realtors are. So I want you to start thinking in terms of small, medium, and large. I want you to start identifying who are the small and medium-sized builders, not just the big ones, okay? So finally, and then we'll wrap up with this. How do I do it? I'm going to give you 5 or 6 ways really fast. We don't have time to get into them today. If you want to, go deep in this stuff, I'm very happy to, we're doing some separate webinars about every week. I'm trying to do one once a week or every couple of weeks. I do a training thing that goes deeper on a Zoom call to really show you step by step more of this. But here, I think there's, I've identified 13 to 15 ways that you can find the builders in your market. It's kind of weird and it's kind of interesting. that in bigger markets, we don't even know where the neighborhoods are. We know some of them, but we don't know majority of them. And you got to step back and go, well, my gosh, if I'm going to get a check for 15 or 12 or 15 or 16 or $18,000 or $8,000 or whatever it is, if I'm going to collect a commission on this, I probably ought to know what the options are on behalf of the buyer. All right. I probably ought to know the neighborhood options. I probably ought to know the builder options. And the strange thing is that we discovered when we started building Hoodle, and even before, there was a Hoodle, was that I didn't know. I was chasing it down, and I did not. And there were all kinds of neighborhoods and all kinds of builders that I just wasn't aware of. But I need to know. If I'm going to be a fiduciary and guide, got to be able to tell my buyer, there's 5 builders. There's 5 builders that would meet your criteria based on your price point and what you want to build and the style and the size of the home and where you want to build. And here they are. Here's my top 5. Not just because it's the only one that I know of that has flags out in front of the community. But here's the 5 that I think are the best suited for you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. And here's the difference between them. And here's why I like this one. I'd say we go talk to this one first. So when you start to understand your niche or your sub niche that well, okay, that you understand the options, all of a sudden they all want to work with you. And the buyers will be referring you out, and you will get into a place where you have more business than you can shake a stick at. It's not that hard. It's just focus. It is about focus and taking the steps. But, there are it's kind of interesting that there are a lot of ways to find the builders, but we don't automatically know what they are. So I'm going to give you 6 of them right now. Okay. I think there's 13 ways that I know of, possibly a couple more, and they get more difficult the further you go into the process. But guess what? We should not shy away from this difficulty. We should not shy away from the challenge. Well, I don't know who the builders are. Let's just go with the first one that I happened to drive past down the road. Oh, this is fine for you, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. They've got big flags. They've got model homes. Let's go do this. Now maybe it is, and maybe it's not. Maybe there's a better neighborhood. Maybe there's a better builder for Mr. and Mrs. Jones, right? And if you want to be a fiduciary and a guide, as I know you do, and you want to do lots of transactions and be recognized as the authority in your market, you can do that. But you got to get to know the options, right? It's not just about the first one that happens along. So how do we find those builders? Because they're not automatically right in front of you all the time. Here's 6 ways, really, really quick. Number 1 is go to the HBA. In every market, almost every market across the United States, there is a Home Builders Association. Sometimes it goes by the name of a BIA, Builder Industry Association. In some markets, especially in Florida and other places, they call it a BIA instead of a HBA. Basically, in every market, there is an HBA, okay? There's a Home Builders Association. It's a good place to look because some of the builders belong to the HBA. Not all of them, not even a majority of them. Usually, however many builders belong to that HBA, usually it's about 10%, 10 to 12 to maybe 15% of the builders. So that also tells you something about how many builders are probably in your market. If you go look at the HBA and there's 100 builders in your HBA, probably means there's roughly about 1,000 builders in your market. It changes the scope of the way you're going after this. It changes your business plan and your perspective. You start to realize, okay, there's a lot of opportunity for me in who I'm going to work with. And I want to pick and choose carefully and work with the right ones that I can add the most value to and where I'm going to be respected the most for the value that I'm bringing. Is this making sense? Tell me it's making, give me a hallelujah, an amen or something. I'm getting ready to pass the plate here. So tell me if it's making sense. But the first place that you want to go look is go look at your HBA in your market and take a look at who's there. Okay, that's a good place to start because you're going to find some builders, and I can almost promise you. Okay, I'm pulling back from the promise. I can promise you this. Almost always, whenever I show realtors how to do this, they're looking at a list of things and they're going, I never heard of this builder. I never knew that builder. Here's another one. Here's another one. And then you go start to meet them and you're like, oh my goodness, this person builds beautiful homes and I didn't even know that they existed. And it's a whole world of opportunity for your buyer. And it's a whole world of opportunity for you. Okay, so number one, if you want to find the builders in your local market, go check your HBA. Number two, go to LinkedIn. Okay, here, I'm going to write down, I'm going to give you a bonus one even here. Okay, go to LinkedIn, number two, because a lot of builders are on LinkedIn. Now, we could do a whole hour session if we had the time. We don't have time today, but we could do a whole session on how to find home builders on LinkedIn. But there's a lot of them that are there. You can't just go to one of them and go, okay, now I know all the builders in my market, because you're developing your inventory. You're developing your database. You're starting to get a handle and you're creating unique value because you're learning what the options are beyond what 99.9% of the realtors are doing. Thank you for that, Facebook user. Absolutely making sense. Thank you, Ron, with 3 exclamation points. Woo! All right, cool. I still got it. So you're going to go check your HBA, then you're going to check LinkedIn. That's another place you want to look. And you're going to find, and every time I show realtors how to do this, again and again, we go to the HBA, then we go to LinkedIn. They're like, oh my gosh, here's more that were not on the HBA, but here they are on LinkedIn. And I can find out a little bit more about them on LinkedIn. And there's a way that you're going to do this too that we don't have time to get into. There's a way to do kind of an audit with the builders that where you're really very quickly starting to identify and engage for yourself, how marketing savvy do I think that this builder is? Maybe how good are they doing at it on their own? What are some of the values that I might be able to provide to them? It's not what you think, okay? And you're going to start to discern pretty quickly which ones are builders versus which ones are developers versus which ones are builders and developers, okay? This is core level stuff. It's not hard to do. You just got to get it. And once you start doing it, it's fun. It's really fun because very quickly you're going to see yourself moving way, way, way past all the other realtors in your market who are like, I didn't even know these builders existed. How did you find this? How many builders are here? How do I find them? You know how to do it. Okay. So go apply it. So number 3, quick thing, simple thing. Anybody can do this. Do a Google search. Okay. And when you do a Google search, you're going to find some more. Some of them that don't have any web presence or very little, they're just listed someplace on a website like mantra.com or like buzzfile.com. You're going to find some builders who have no website at all, but they're a builder. And you go meet that builder and you go, hey, nice builder, nice person. They seem high integrity. They've got some good quality homes that nobody seems to know about. Are you getting the picture? All right, so that's the third one. Fourth one is state license. In a lot of states, and it's not true of all states, but there's a contractor license. They have to have a license. In Florida, there's actually 2 different kinds of contractor license. There's ones where, and I don't remember what they're called, but if you got this one contractor license, you can only build in that county. If you got the other one, you can build anywhere in the state of Florida. And you're licensed to build all over the state of Florida. So every state is a little bit different. And, these are things that you want to find out. You want to learn this kind of stuff because if you're going to become a new construction specialist, I want you speaking the language. I want you to get it. I want you to be stepping in there and adding value and speaking with authority about your local market. Okay. So number 3, you can go to the licensing. You're not going to find out a whole lot of information there, but you will find a list of a lot of builders that you never heard of. Okay. If your state has a license, I tried to find out, I'd like to have in my database all the states that require a builder's license, and I've yet to find that out. So I know some of them, but I don't have a complete list. So it's hit and miss on that one. Some states require it, some don't. And that's number 3. Number 4, go to Facebook. And on Facebook, one of the things that you can do is when you find a builder, do a like on them. Do the like, even if you don't like them, or maybe not if you don't like them, but if you don't know them, do a like, and Facebook will show you other builders in your market that are similar to them, that are also home builders. And I'm telling you what, you're going to start to know a lot of builders that you did not know exist. Now, what would I do? And what you should do is they all go into the database. They all go into the database. I will save that for another conversation because there's a way to do it very, very fast, where you're populating that database with all the builders you can find in Franklin, Tennessee, or in Columbus, Ohio, or in Salt Lake City, or wherever you are. So you want to populate that database and put them all in there, because you want to start to know who your inventory is of builders, developers, and neighborhoods and buyers. Okay, so that is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll give you one more, and that is drive through the new home neighborhoods. Okay, you want to know the inventory. So when you're driving through the new home neighborhoods, here's what I would do. You got this smartphone, and most of them all have a camera on them these days. Every time you drive through a new home neighborhood, as you should be, and you're seeing signs, here's a builder I never knew about. Here's a builder that has a lot, and that was a camera picture, Elka, by the way. That, I know it sounded exactly like a camera picture, didn't it? So those are 6 ways, and there's obviously a lot more we could talk about it as far as defining which ones. Once you know the ones, once you start to know who the builders are in your market, there's a lot more to that. But hopefully in an hour and 7 minutes, you've got some good stuff here that I'm telling you what, if you begin to apply this and start to step into this process, you're going to make money. You're going to make the money. And, I've got realtors that we're training all over the country that are calling me back and going, I went and did this, and now, I've got this new client, I've got this new company that I'm in process with, and they're rolling out the red carpet for me, and they're treating me better and different from all the other realtors. It works. It just works. So with all that, I hope I didn't dump too much on you, but I absolutely hope that you use it. I hope you go use it. I hope you tell other people about it. And if you want to become the new home authority, you really want to make the money and make the deals and become the go-to realtor for new construction market. The opportunity is wide, stinking open. Yes, I said stinking. I didn't mean to be crass. It's wide, stinking open in every market. You just gotta decide you're going to own it. Decide it, and then speak it out into the universe and write it down and start talking about it. Start telling people. I specialize in new construction. You don't have to say, I know everything about it. I know every new home neighborhood and every builder and what their differences are. You don't need to know that. Okay. You're going to develop that over time, but start to own it. Decide it. And by the way, if you decide that that's something you want to do, you probably ought to join up with Hoodle, or you definitely need to find out what Hoodle is about. And you need to talk about that too, because that is the tool that everybody's starting to go to, and it's growing all over the United States, and it's changing the way buyers buy new construction homes. So guys, that's all I got today. I hope you got something out of that. I really want to bless you, and really want you to go out and use this stuff to get big wins. Okay. So have an amazing week. And as always, go out there and become amazing for somebody else. If you got something out of this, tell somebody to join our group and to jump in with us next week. We're going to be talking about the next step, which is, I don't remember what the next step is at the moment. My brain's already fried from this morning. But, and if you didn't see it before, go back and look at the ones on neighborhoods. Here, one last thing. If you haven't seen this already, let me give you this here. There is a free report at newhomenicheblueprint.com. I know there's a lot of people that are joining the New Home Niche Blueprint group. That's our Facebook group. But there's another website where you can download a report on all 7 of the big major buyer problems new construction buyers have. Go grab that, download it, watch the videos that go with it, and then show back up here next Wednesday. And if you need more help, if you're ready to talk, reach out to me, message me on Facebook, and help you any way I can. But go be a blessing for somebody, and have an amazing week. We'll talk to you later. Bye.